Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charleston, and welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic, debates, entertainment, and we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And today we got a pretty serious show that we want you guys to stick around for, so please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the Brooklyn Nets, right? We're going to be talking about the Brooklyn Nets. It's time to talk about the Brooklyn Nets for a second. A lot of people spent a lot of time talking about Kyrie and how he's this and how he's that and all of this. Let's get to the Brooklyn Nets for a second here. Let's put the spotlight on this team for a second. As y'all know, the Brooklyn Nets find themselves entrenched in drama. And a lot of it has to do with the things that they themselves have been doing. Let's go back. 2 seasons ago, the Brooklyn Nets pulled off a blockbuster trade. In that trade, they were able to acquire James Harden. James Harden gets to the Brooklyn Nets, and you all remember, they were calling it scary hours. Then the pandemic hit, and I think we were getting mixed signals about what was happening, these various things. Long story short, James Harden said that, you know what, I can't be here anymore. I don't want to be here anymore. And his former GM in Daryl Morey, who was working in Philly, found a way to get a deal done, and they traded for James Harden. But the problem was this. The person they traded for James Harden was Ben Simmons. And at that time, so many people were saying, oh, this is a fantastic, oh, Ben, can you imagine Skip Bayless, Stephen A. Smith, all of these people. And I said to myself, why are these people celebrating the fact that the Nets just got Ben Simmons? What's to celebrate about that? You had a scenario in which you were trading a disgruntled player in James Harden, who was still going out there scoring 20 points a game, that was playing, for a player that seemed to be unstable and wasn't playing any basketball games. You pull that trade off, and somehow some people thought Brooklyn won the trade. I was like, what? I'm like, Ben Simmons is what people are celebrating for? Nevertheless, they traded for Ben Simmons, right? Which was the first big thing that make you call someone and say, wait a minute, is everything working properly upstairs? That's the first thing. Then, while that was happening, you had the Kyrie Irving situation where Kyrie said, I'm not going to get vaccinated because I don't want to. Period. And then Brooklyn said, Sean Marks and them, okay, we're not going to have a part-time player. Go home and we'll pay you. Kyrie said, okay, you guys want me to go home? I'll go home. I'll sit in my house. A few weeks later, a month later, they call up Kyrie and say, Kyrie, you can come back, but you can play role games. And people were like, what kind of clown show organization is this? You say one thing and you do it. Imagine having a leader doing this. They do that. Kyrie returns. I think at one point KD got hurt. Came back, made it into playoffs, gets swept in the first round in embarrassing fashion. During the offseason, Kevin Durant says he's probably sitting somewhere thinking, and he goes, you know what, guys? I don't want to be here anymore. KD comes out, publicly requests a trade from the Brooklyn Nets. Then what happened? People started saying, well, KD's under contract. This is wrong, blah, 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 blah. Brooklyn refused to budge. Then KD said, okay, listen, I'm going to meet with the owner and I'm going to reiterate my position that I still want to be traded. However, I'll give you guys an ultimatum. The ultimatum is this. Based on some of the things I've been seeing in this organization, where it seems like a bunch of chickens with their head cut off running all over the place, everybody's going in a different direction. I would like for you guys to get rid of the coach and find a new GM. Then I'll come. And if you're not willing to do that, I don't want to come. Guess what Brooklyn did? Brooklyn said no. Joe said, I'm on the side of my staff. And that's Joe's. I'm on the side of my staff. You have my 100% backing. That's the owner of the Brooklyn Nets. What happens? Season commences. About 2 to 3 weeks into the season, guess what this genius organization decided to do? You know what? We're going to part ways and fire Steve Nash. The very thing that KD asked them to do months prior. Somehow they had a eureka moment and they said, you know what, we got to fire him. Now, I'll give them a bit of credit. And the credit is they didn't wait until things just spiraled totally out of hand before they fired him. They fired KD. Good. Then, what happened next? While they were doing that, they were vetting the potential replacement coach in Ime Udoka. Listen to this. We get the word shortly after, maybe hours after, Steve Nash got fired through various sources like Adrian Wojnarowski, other CBS Sports, other sports media platforms, saying that Ime Udoka is most likely going to be the replacement coach for the Brooklyn Nets. Then what happens? We then found ourselves in the Kyrie Irving drama with the team, where Kyrie posted the link, and I think within hours, Joe Tsai, the leader, instead of sitting down and asking the player, hey, what's going on here? Why'd you post that? What's the meaning behind this? He jumps on Twitter and publicly denounces his own player in the public forum, which now creates even more drama. I want you guys to follow the steps of this team. Then people say, Joe Tsai, the Nets ownership did this, blah, blah, blah. Then that thing starts. Then that drama starts bubbling and percolating. And then we start hearing reports that from Mark Stein and others that, wait a minute, we're now starting to hear strong voices contact the Nets ownership and say, we don't think it's a good idea for you guys to hire Ime Udoka. And guess what the Nets do? The Nets then decide we're not going to hire Ime Udoka. And then they put out a statement. Listen to this clown show statement by Sean Marks, GM. Jacques Vaughn, who's the current coach, is the perfect candidate for us and this organization moving forward. Now, here's the joke of it all. If Jacques Vaughn was the best candidate, why were you interviewing Ime Udoka? Jacques Vaughn had been there. Wouldn't you have just fired Steve Nash and promoted Jacques Vaughn immediately? But now they understood that, oh my God, we got a diamond in the rough. Do you see him shining over there? We never saw him. Jacques, come on in. You're the guy for the job. They then hire him. Just follow the litany of blunders one organization has been making over a period of time. Then, it's like a comedy. It's like Saturday Night Live, man. Then, they suspend Kyrie Irving for 5 games, right? And I believe that the reason that they did that was because of what people were saying outside. It wasn't even because they themselves wanted to do it. It's my personal opinion. They then suspend him for 5 games, at the minimum of 5 games. And then they put out a list of steps that Kyrie Irving must follow in order for him to return, which creates even more controversy, which brings even more negative press to the team. And to cap it all off, listen to this part. When the Brooklyn Nets decided to pass up on Ime Udoka, I said this is when you knew this is a very foolish team. Why? Some people were, it's going to be a PR disaster. You know what Malika Andrews and these people are going to be saying about? I said, okay, you guys are not willing to go through maybe 1 or 2 months of some people talking. Instead, you're going to hire a coach that was never your first decision. You're not going to hire a proven coach that just took their team to the NBA Finals and risk peacocking in front of the media to say, no, we're not going to hire Ime Udoka. We're going to stand on our principle, just to end up turning into a clown show for the remainder of the season when the team continues to lose. I said, what is worse? What brings more worse press? The Ime Udoka story or the Brooklyn Nets continuing to lose? Most people said the losing. And now that Ime Udoka is no longer the coach of that team, or will not be the coach, what are we here talking about? The losing. This is a comedy show, the Brooklyn Nets. And just yesterday, I believe we got an article out. I think from Yahoo Sports, from Chris Haynes. I think KD sat down with Chris Haynes, if I'm not mistaken, where KD was like, have you seen this roster? And where he was basically explaining his reasoning for wanting to be traded. Think of the clown show the Brooklyn Nets are. And nobody's talking about, when they say the Brooklyn Nets, it's like this vague entity. No, put a name on it. Y'all certainly had no issues pointing at Kyrie. Point at the leadership structure of this team. It is being run like a clown show. And we need to talk more about that for a second. You talking about the Knicks? What about the Brooklyn Nets? It's unbelievable. This is the Brooklyn Nets for you. And I think this needs to be the conversation as well. You want to talk about management that seems to be absolutely confused? Let me ask you, who's the leader in the Brooklyn Nets? Who is it? Nobody knows. Case in point. Catch y'all on the next show.